Okay, it is it's not early in the morning, it's late in the afternoon, but not late in the afternoon. It's only 11:15. So, whatever. But I'm a little sleepy because Zeta doesn't really go to bed like she used to. Like she used to just go straight to bed and wasn't a big deal, but now she fights it. So she stays up and it's just like, oh. So yeah, I'm feeling it. But anyhow, if you notice this trash bag, it's not a real, I mean, it's a real trash bag, but what's in it are like little plastic rubber toys. They're like little rubber mats that the kids use and they play with. And they're basically too old for them, but they still hold on to them. But you basically can build these little rubber blocks out of them, and they build little towers and everything. They take over the man cave with them. But anyway, you don't care about that. Make sure you join the Discord. It's going to be down in the description box below. I got this Ask Hershinoe, and someone said that they wanted to move to Washington State, and they realized that obviously Western Washington, which is where Seattle and Tacoma is, was way too expensive. They couldn't afford it. So they wanted to look at homes that were in Spokane. I've had a few people mention Spokane. And they said still the home prices were way too expensive. So they said, why are home prices still so expensive? He goes on to say, looked at a couple of houses there, and still all of the homes were at least 280,000. There were some that were less than that, but they were not something you would want to live in, or they were just not in an area that I wanted to be in. Why are homes, even on this side of the state, expensive? I thought it was mainly just Western Washington. That's a good question. Um, Washington State by itself, the home prices have went up. I think this is going off at the top of my head. I think 5%. No, is that right? 5%, close to 5%, is what the prices of homes on state average go up every year. Now that's quite a bit. When you look at Seattle, it's a little bit higher than that. And then when you look at Tacoma, which is what I'm more familiar with, you're looking at 7.9, sometimes 8%, because it has really, it's the last bastion, if you will, of home prices. So there's a lot of leverage there. Because home prices here have been so much lower than what you see up in Seattle, here home prices go up a lot faster. And I often tell people, yeah, you can, and I think the folks don't get it. I was talking about this yesterday on Discord, that people look with their eyes and they purchase with their eyes, but they don't envision the future. Um, it works well again if you're from my hometown. You want to have a house with all the brick and all the pretty and the fancy, and it was built last year and this, that, and the other. That's great. That doesn't really work well here unless you really have a boatload of money. You see what I'm saying? People come here if you're making less than $200,000 a year, you need to really think carefully how you purchase a home, because there are people here who make by far more than $200,000 a year. By far, by far. And I know of a few that make more than that, right? $200,000 a year here is not that big of a deal. Other places, it's like, whoa. Here, it's not that big of a deal. A lot of people make that. I shouldn't say a lot, but there are quite a few that make at least that or much, much more. So that's not that big of a deal. Down here, you have not only places like Tacoma, which the average is like 430 something thousand. It has jumped and leapfrogged and jumped and leapfrogged because you have the desire for people, or the desire of homes, because people can't afford Seattle and they can't really afford Bellevue or any other place. and they want to be as close as they can to Seattle. And they also want a city life, because you can live in some of the South King County cities, but it's going to feel very suburban. So they want to have a city, and they want to be a part of that. So that's what you're looking at here in terms of the prices just ballooning. Then when you go to places like Fox Island, the average price for homes there are $900 and something thousand dollars. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be, it's now, when we talk about hoity toity, I did that little map showing you the prices for homes in Old Town. And I said, you need old money. And you saw the prices there. You know, Fox Island, it's even more than that. You know what I mean? Like, so that is figured into everything. There's not as many people living on Fox Island, obviously. And the fact that it's an island, that also keeps the population down. But yeah, it's you got to have some cash. That doesn't mean everybody there necessarily does, but generally, you got to have some cash. So when you look at that, it makes Western Washington very unattainable for a lot of people. The state itself is being propped up because of Western Washington, basically. So even though Spokane is a decent chunk of drive away, the ripple effects are bleeding over. Now, still, you can buy two houses. It's the opposite. You know, I used to say you can buy two homes down here in Tacoma for the price of one home up in Seattle. Well, it's the case between Spokane and Tacoma. It used to be Spokane used to be the second largest, still is, the second largest city in the state after Seattle, and it had a pretty comfortable lead. Tacoma and Spokane are basically even now in terms of population. Tacoma may have overtaken it, but as of the first part of 2020, there was only a couple of hundred people difference, and Spokane still led a little bit. But by now, it has already blown well past Spokane because the growth here is so exponential. A lot of people moving in every day. Now, it's not like what you see up in Phoenix, or down in Phoenix. Phoenix grows by like 80,000 people a year, something insane. That is a city that's growing pretty quickly, but that's not the case down here in Tacoma. It's not growing that fast, but it's growing fast enough given what we have and the stock of houses that we have. Unlike Phoenix, which can build, you can't do that here. So the prices of everything goes sky high. Once you leave the mountain areas and you go out towards eastern Washington, you have by far more land, much more land where you can spread out. Spokane is in an area where it could spread out in many different directions. So because of that, because you are able to spread out, you're able to have more single family homes, more new constructions of homes. So that allows you to suppress the price quite a bit. Still, homes there are $280,000, as you mentioned, on average, but it's lower than what it would be because Spokane can spread out a lot more than places like Tacoma, because we're hemmed in. We're hemmed in by the mountains. We're hemmed in by native lands. We're hemmed in by the water. We're hemmed in by other cities. So we can't grow any other place unless we overtake another city. And that is what Tacoma has tried. There's been other cities in the area that have really fought against any of that. And they've put in plans so that that doesn't happen. But there's concern that Tacoma is trying to grow because there's just no other space. You see what I'm saying? But that's the reason why. The entire state is going to be a little bit more expensive than some of these other states as you go farther to the east, obviously. And it's just mainly because of Seattle and the bleed over effect, but also you're on the coast. So West Coast states are going to always be a little bit more pricier anyway. That's just kind of how it is. The closer you get to the water, people tend to think it's more expensive. That's not the case here. Seattle is really the one that, when I say Seattle, I'm talking about the Puget Sound region. And that right there by itself is just churning the entire state. I was talking to my sister yesterday, and so she didn't understand the city because, where we're from, 60 miles away is Nashville, Tennessee. And between Nashville and Bowling Green, Kentucky, it's just nothing but field. I mean, there's, a town here or there, but mostly it's just fields and it's very spread out and all of that. But I said it's not like that here. If you go 60, so if you start in Everett and you go down to Tacoma, you see nothing but city. Like they're like literally. So that 60-mile range that you're talking of here is not like what you see back where we're from. You don't see a whole lot of just look out and it's just dark at night. There's always lights. There's always city because there's so many suburbs that ring out, that going all the way up from down here in Tacoma all the way up until you go into Everett, all the way far north, 60 miles away. I think it's 60 miles. It's just all city. City, 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 city. City after city after city. They all blend together. It is a massively huge chunk of an area. So that big chunk, including, you can throw Olympia in there, which is another 30 miles added to that. You have almost 100 miles of development. Now, I should say between Olympia and Tacoma, you start to not see as much city. It starts to fade out a little bit, and you start having more less populated areas and things like that. But when we're talking about from Tacoma up, it's just literally town after town after city after city. And then you hit Seattle, and then after that you hit Linwood and all these other places it's really developed. And then when you go towards the east, same thing. It spreads out and it goes north and south. It's pretty densely packed. So that big area is really propelling the rest of the state in terms of housing prices. So there's a bleed over effect, because people then say, okay, well, I'm going to just live outside of that. Let me go further south, or let me go further north, or let me go further east. And so then the demand goes up there. So then the prices reflect that. And then people are like, I can't really afford that. Let me go a little bit further out. So that keeps happening to the point of where everything starts to go up. Now, obviously, you don't have a lot of people living in Spokane and going to Seattle to work or any of that type of thing. But what happens is everything's based on an average. And so you're seeing that just in general, prices are going to go up just as a state norm. You don't want to be a state where the housing prices are this much, but over here you can get houses for $30,000. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So the prices go up. There are other reasons that go into that. There's a lot of codes that have to be followed. We are a state that has earthquakes. It's possible. So a lot of that goes into the situation too. So there's so many different reasons, but typically it's due to all of the demand that's in this particular area here, and it's really throwing everything else out of whack. You don't see that a lot in, like, my home state, for example. In Kentucky, it doesn't happen like that. But again, when you look at housing prices in Bowling Green versus Louisville, they're very similar. There's not a huge difference. Here, there's drastic differences, major differences, because there's major swings in terms of what people are going to make. This side of the state, again, people earn the most money by far. So that makes it attractive. So when people say, I want to, move to Idaho, or not Idaho, I was looking at Idaho. I want to move to Spokane, which is close to Idaho. And, they're thinking that is an option because they want to be in Washington State. Understand that Spokane and Seattle are drastically different. It doesn't look like they're even in the same state. It's a completely different area. Completely different. In every aspect. In every single aspect. You're not going to feel like you're in the same state, honestly. So it's different. So when I tell people, like, hey, they've been here, they visited, and they are like, you know what, I can't afford anything. Maybe I'll just get in. They're scared of Tacoma. Let me just go over to Spokane. You can do that, but it's going to be way different. Again, visit a place that you're wanting to live in. Go to the non-touristy areas, and then see how well you like it. Because that's what I did. When I went to Portland, I went to the non-touristy areas, and I wasn't a big fan of Portland. It's just not my thing. Some people love Portland. Some people really, truly love Portland more than anything. And it just kind of, it's all about your preferences and what you really like. But for me, it wasn't up there. Some people can't stand Tacoma. They just hate it. They're scared of it. They hate it. They think it's gross. They think it stinks. They think it's poor. They think it's everything. And then there's other people who really and truly love all of those aspects of Tacoma. So same thing with Seattle. So it just depends on who you are as a person. No city is going to fit everybody. You know what I mean? Like, no city is going to fit most people. So you have to decide if this is going to be the place for you. But explaining as to why everything here is expensive, that's pretty much the reason why. Hope I answered your question. Make sure you join the Discord. It's going to be down in the description box below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.